want to tell all of our viewers that the India Today group has covered Ratan Tata for a very long time. He has graced the covers of India Today magazine, and we'll put those on your screen for you in just a moment on multiple occasions over the decades. So he was media shy, famously someone who shunned the spotlight, but he was a headline maker. There was a huge amount of national interest in Ratan Tata, in all the big moves that he made, and he leaves a huge void that will be difficult to fill. A heartfelt note from N. Chandrasekharan, the chairman of Tata Sons, confirms the tragic passing away of Ratan Tata at 86 years old. I'm joined by my India Today group colleague, Sahil Joshi, who heads our Mumbai team. We have Siddharth Zarabi of Business Today Television. Krishna Gopalan is executive editor, Business Today as well. All of them joining me. Siddharth, quickly coming to you first. Sad news. It had been known for a while. It's been confirmed by Mr. Chandrasekharan. Your first thoughts on the passing away of Ratan Tata. What kind of a void does this leave? Calling him an iconic mogul doesn't quite capture it.
The arc of Mr. Ratan Tata's history at the Tata Group, starting from 1991 to now, and over the recent past, he had taken a step back. He was chairman emeritus of the group. So there are multiple facets. But Shiv, very quickly, as an icon of Indian industry, as someone who took Indian industry overseas, as someone with a group that operates in almost 100 countries, if we go back in history, and we can clearly say that this whole business of India abroad, from a business sense, from an economic sense, the brand that India has overseas is a very significant contribution of the Tata Group. And Mr. Ratan Tata himself, I would say, should be recognized primarily for his contribution in taking the Tata Group global. There are multiple acquisitions, whether it is a tea acquisition, whether it is the decision that followed on several other industrial fronts. The fact remains that Mr. Ratan Tata history at the group, when he was a hands-on boss, also mirrors that arc of India's reforms and industrial and economic growth. 1991, remember that point in our history, and therefore many of the things of the Tata Group reflect the highs and also some of the lows. I remember Tata Ki Lakhta Kiya Shiv, which was a car that was born out of this very deep-seated, passionate desire of Mr. Tata to provide safe, quality travel to those who could only afford two-wheelers. Brilliant plan. A lot was done in its execution. It also mirrors our political history, how that plant had to be moved from West Bengal to Gujarat, how then Chief Minister Narendra Modi sent a text to Mr. Ratan Tata and welcomed him to Gujarat, how the deindustrialization of West Bengal can somehow be connected to what happened in Sanad those days. So I think he was special. And there are very few people who are given the opportunity and at the scale that Mr. Ratan Tata was able to contribute. I'm not even talking about the billions and billions of dollars that this group has spent in philanthropy. So it's clearly one of the saddest days as far as India Inc. is concerned. And one quick point, Shiv, even in the manner of which he handed over the baton and passed it on, and remember, he was chairman emeritus, did not directly have any operational role. All the companies, and Krishna can expand on that, are professionally run. The Tata administrative school, so to say, was at one time considered the corporate equivalent of the Indian administrative service. So they have contributed in immeasurable ways. A lot of executives who now work for many other companies and globally have cut their teeth in the Tata Group. So I don't even know where to sort of summarize what Ratan Tata meant for India industry and through all the pivotal times that we have seen in the past 4 decades.
It's difficult to capture in just a few lines, and I completely understand that, Siddharth, but I am going to still ask, that there is some speculation now about what the succession plan is going to be. We'll come to the legacy of Ratan Tata in a moment, but the succession plan, given that this was an enormous empire, huge conglomerate, there will have to be a very structured succession. Is it clear what that is, or will that be revealed only later?
First thing, he was chairman emeritus for several years now.
Yeah.
For many companies. Mr. Chandrasekharan is the chairman of Tata Sons. So therefore, that bit of the succession issue is very well settled. And if Krishna Gopalan is with us, we can get him more on the specifics. But I would say that as far as the Tata Group is concerned, everything is set in stone. Mr. Ratan Tata's role, and remember, there was a big battle, that famous Ooster that happened of someone that Mr. Ratan Tata had hoped would eventually succeed him and remain in the driver's seat. All of that is in the past. So what the Tata Group does in terms of will it make someone the chairman emeritus? That's a question that Krishna and I have been speaking about just before we got on air. And maybe, Krishna, you want to come in on that and add your thoughts to the question that Shiv asked us.
Krishna?
Going professional is something that Tata has institutionalized many years ago. And as Siddharth rightly pointed out, the Tata Administrative Service became the perfect breeding ground for a large number of executives to move into large Tata organizations and eventually attain senior positions, which is exactly what has happened. So if you look at Tata Chemicals, you look at brand custodians or you go back to Tata Steel in the past, Indian Hotels, the senior management have all come from this coveted university. I'm just going to tell you that the process of going professional was pretty clear even in 2008 or 9 when it was apparent that Mr. Tata was just a few years away from turning 75. A lot of names did the rounds, and as Siddharth pointed out, Mr. Mistry did come in. He was there for about 4 years before N. Chandrasekharan, who was then MD of Tata Consultancy Services at TCS, took charge. I think to that extent, the road ahead is fairly straightforward and pretty smooth. The chairman emeritus part of it is perhaps the one to look out for, but to my mind, I think it's going to be work as normal because we're speaking of a group that's absolutely robust with sound business models across its sectors that they operate in. So to my mind, I don't see too much of a concern on that one.
Siddharth, going forward now, what would you say are the 2 or 3 biggest things that Ratan Tata will be remembered for? Not just business-wise, but also of him as an individual, an iconic individual. What are the 2 or 3 things that he will be perhaps most remembered for?
Shiv, straight up, in corporate offices, in corporate boardrooms, black suits, red ties, and everything spick and span, 7-star. But when you walk into Bombay House, and I remember as a reporter when I first went there, and that many, many years ago, the sight of dogs greeting you in the foyer. That was Mr. Ratan Tata. He was quirky. The second thing that I would like to recall him for was Tata ki lakhta kya. Many of us would say, Nano, what did it? Just like the Maruti was an epochal moment in our automotive history, I argue, despite the subsequent sort of issues that came up, that the Nano was an epochal moment when it came to affordable travel. Have we got there? We don't know, but it kind of has set, was amongst the key things that have led to a situation where Tata Motors is now leading as a car maker in cutting edge EV technology. 2 more things, and one of them, which you know very well as a subject, defense. And semiconductors. It takes guts, it takes money. And also, I would say, the biggest economic decision, and there are several of them that the Narendra Modi government has taken in its first 2 terms, in its over 10 years. But forget GST, forget demonetization. The biggest was the fact that Mr. Ratan Tata got back Air India. The government of India has taken debt, but it takes a lot of heart, a lot of courage to take over Air India, because the whole plan was, it was not just an emotional decision. Remember, millions and millions of Indians fork out pretty much $1 billion or more, perhaps, traveling through hubs, enriching other countries, many of which are inimical to our strategic and security interests. So direct flights from Delhi to all over the world, that is at the cornerstone of the Air India plan. And when that fructifies, when all those new planes, that massive order all those planes land or are put to use, is going to fundamentally change the way that lakhs and lakhs of Indians travel. So again, Shiv, very difficult to summarize because this is a group that mirrors India's political, economic, social history like none other, friend.
Truly. I mean, it isn't just as N. Chandrasekharan said in his note announcing the tragic passing away of Ratan Tata. He says he wasn't just a person associated with Indian industry, but the very fabric of the nation. And his life, he was born in 1937, 10 years before independence. He's just passed away at the age of 86. So he has been an integral part of the entire Indian growth story. And Siddharth, I'm glad you mentioned defense because, Tata has, all the big Indian private sector companies, have made their way into defense in one way or the other. But the success and the integrity with which Ratan Tata navigated the Tata Group into the very difficult business of defense is also something that he will be remembered for. Not many people know, among our viewers perhaps, that Ratan Tata's diversification into defense has allowed the Tata Group to become the first private sector company in Indian history to currently be building a military aircraft for the Indian military. The C-295 aircraft, part of a joint venture between Tata and Airbus, are currently being built between Hyderabad and Vadodara in Gujarat. And it was something that he was deeply, deeply proud of. He has built an entire ecosystem of defense companies on the outskirts of Hyderabad in Telangana, which very, very quietly builds fuselages and rotors and wings and cabins for the biggest aerospace companies in the world, Boeing and BAE Systems and Lockheed Martin and all of those companies. So his success in the defense sphere most definitely came towards the latter part of his career in Tata, but has been one of the most resoundingly successful. I'm going to bring Sahil Joshi in on our coverage. I'm told that he's going to be joining us. He's going to be with us in just a moment. I'm asking our producers to bring Sahil on board so we can also find out what plans for tomorrow. The Prime Minister has put out his statement of condolence, talking about what a visionary Ratan Tata was. President Draupadi Murmu has also put out a comment and statement of condolence. All big political leaders have published posts of condolence on Ratan Tata. He's a man who needed no introduction, but the details of his life, his journey in the Tata Group are enormously interesting. The pictures you see on your screen here, and I was actually there personally when this happened many years ago, was when Ratan Tata was flying in an F-16 fighter. He was a passionate aviator, owned a lot of aircraft himself, loved to fly whenever he got the chance. Obviously not in recent years, but he did whenever he got a chance, got behind the stick and did fly. These were pictures of him in his, I'm assuming he would have been in his 70s when these visuals were taken of him at the Yelahanka Air Base in Bengaluru, strapping into an F-16. And very important because the Tata Group's partnership with the company that makes the F-16, Lockheed Martin of the United States, has resulted in a huge industrial partnership where India builds crucial aerostructures for all of these companies. I'm also joined by Karishma Sudani of Business Today. She also joins us. She's been reporting on many of the things that the Tata Group has been involved with over the years. Karishma, welcome. As a business reporter, as a business journalist, Karishma, how would you remember Ratan Tata, his legacy, and the many things he achieved in the sectors, the spheres that you've reported for so many years?
Shiva, I've heard the conversation that you've been having with Siddharth and Krishna, and there have been a host of sectors that you have spoken about. It's definitely a bleak day for the fact that there are going to be tears for his memoir and dedicated to what he has done. But from a youth perspective, as somebody who's been a journalist and has been covering the corporate conglomerate Tata for a few years. I think what Ratan Tata is going to be remembered among us millennials, among Gen Z, is being a mentor to the new generation. It was not just his investments and thoughts throughout setting up big conglomerates, be it steel or be it getting aviation or be it semiconductor and all the new sectors that he was looking into, but the fact that he was an angel investor for many startups, mentoring a new generation of Indian entrepreneurs. And we have all picked that sentiment. We've all picked on and built on that sentiment. Just before this, I was on my Instagram, and all the stories from the biggest of celebrities to the younger generation. In fact, my younger brother, who probably does not even follow much of what is happening in the corporate world, has been sharing stories of historic stories of how Ratan Tata has been a figure of inspiration for most of us. He made significant investments in technology, healthcare, and innovation, and he invested, of course, in a lot of startups. So I think what he's going to be remembered for among us, the youth, the generation, is not just being a figure of a big name in the corporate industry, but a figure of influence and inspiration that is going to remain with us in years to come, especially us, the generation which is trying to build on, which has big dreams towards making a good future.
I'm really glad you touched upon the Gen Z angle, Karishma, because that's something that we noticed as well. It's incredible how he was 86 years old, and he was still something of a youth icon. At public events, he'd be stormed by college students and kids, because everyone, of course, recognized him. He had a very distinctive look, very handsome man. Even in his later years, and he was instantly recognizable. People would rush to him for selfies. He was always gracious, but always media shy. He always sort of shunned the media, wasn't very comfortable in the spotlight, even though he had such a outward-facing kind of business. But I'm going to come back to that point in just a bit, because I do want to talk about his personality also in a moment. But I want to quickly first get an update from the ground outside the Breach Candy Hospital, where Ratan Tata breathed his last a short while ago. Dev Kotak is live with me. Dev, what are the plans? Has it been made clear what the last rites ceremony, etc., will look like? Ratan Tata, of course, belonged to the Parsi community. There are many different rituals and ceremonies that the community, will possibly have to conduct. But Ratan Tata was also a very big public figure. What are you hearing? What are the ceremonies and rituals going to look like?
Well, first to give our viewers an update, he was aged 86 years old, and he has passed away due to age-related illnesses. I'm right now outside the Breach Candy Hospital, and you are already aware that what a great figure he was. In fact, he comes from a community, the Parsi community, where the word philanthropy is synonymous with the community, and the culture is very distinct. Since you spoke about it, barely 1.5 kilometers away from where I am is the Dungarwadi, or the Towers of Silence, in the Kemp's Corner area, and that is the culture they follow, because that is a community that strictly believes in not polluting the soil, which is why they don't like to follow the burial method or the Hindu method of burning the body, because they do not believe in air pollution as well, which is why what they feel is that what comes from the universe must go back to it, which is why they leave it to the scavengers, which is what the Parsi communities follow out here in this area near Malabar Hill, which is where what I mentioned, the Dungarwadi, or the Towers of Silence. It is up the slope, and the body is carried into a deep well, which is where it is placed on a slab, and then after prayers it is led to the scavengers, or the sky, or the birds of the sky, the vultures, the eagles, because like I mentioned earlier as well, what they believe is that giving back to the environment and not polluting or corrupting anything of that sort. But coming back to what a tall leader he was, He was known for takeover of iconic brands such as Jaguar Land Rover. The entire world knows about how that takeover has been and what an amazing personality he has been. Earlier, you were also speaking about him and his connect with the Gen Z. Something that they follow is mainly his humility. In fact, a few months ago also, sometime last year when he was visiting the Taj Hotel at Colaba, he did not get out in a fancy car, but in fact in a Tata Nano. So that video went viral. That is something that also struck with everyone in tier 2, 3 and 4 cities as well. So you can really imagine what he was like since Monday. His condition was not good. He was slightly critical, but he also issued a statement later during that day after a few hours stating that there must not be any kind of speculation or rumor mongering by media and the general public about his health. He is doing exactly fine and just as how he should be, but it was just a routine checkup. But as of now, in terms of a medical bulletin or the technical health issues that he may have suffered and passed away due to are yet to be issued by the Breach Candy Hospital. But as of now, all we know is that he suffered from age-related illnesses.
Okay. Dave, we leave it there for the moment. Thanks very much for putting that into perspective for us. Rituals under the Parsi traditions will be carried out for Ratan Tata. Tomorrow, we'll also get clarity for you on Prime Minister Modi's schedule and his possible visit to Mumbai to pay his last respects to Ratan Tata. Siddharth, Karishma was telling us about Ratan Tata's amazing youth connect, and that was visible in the few public events that he did in recent years. But another thing that Ratan Tata was sort of synonymous with, and something that he made the Tata Group synonymous with, was this sort of aura of integrity. In a cutthroat kind of world where business leaders often didn't think much of getting their hands dirty, Ratan Tata seemed to sort of sit above all of it. He had this reputation for ethics, a reputation for honesty, a reputation for probity and integrity. How did he achieve that?
I've asked this question to someone who is very highly placed and is a Tata lifer. And I asked this many years ago, and his answer was that even if there are controversies, remember that there is a Tata way of doing things. He acknowledged at that stage that we are very aggressive when it comes to winning orders, winning business. But there is a line that is never crossed. And there is one clear thing that sets apart the Tata Group, and that is where all that imagery, that reputation also stems from, perhaps, Shiv. And this is to do with the fact of the manner in which Tata companies are run. The importance of the board, the fact that while there is a promoter, I remember Mr. Ratan Tata was Jamshedji Tata's nephew, and there is a Tata surname. Just look at how the baton has passed on to Mr. Chandrasekharan, who is a Tata lifer, but it doesn't share that surname. And therefore, the strength of professionals running the company with a certain set of ethics and values, and therefore not compromising. Plus, the fact that there was nobody who was driving a CEO or a marketing officer or a sales officer to cut corners. That said, the group has had its fair share of controversies, some missteps, including very long back when it came to doing business in Assam, and where the Ulfa was a big problem for companies who were operating, or the Neera Radia episode and all the allegations that were created around it. But at the end of the day, I think the group came out clean, and some of the business losses that they suffered, I must quickly end by saying, I am reminded of two episodes. One was the episode around 2G and how the group sort of cut its losses and tried to make a very clean break. And the other was Tata Finance, where and Krishna can come in on that, Shiv, if time permits. But I do distinctly remember that nobody lost money. The Aam Aadmi did not lose money, and that was a guarantee that flowed right from the top of the Tata Group that yes, there's been a misdemeanor, some employees have goofed up, but nobody will suffer as a consequence. And contrast that with the hundreds and thousands of crores that promoters have built from our banks, who have decamped from Indian shores, who have hurt Indian taxpayers, depositors. That behavior is, miles apart.
Incredible. Krishna, you want to pick up on that? The Tata way of doing things. That's a lovely story. I'm going to tell it, if you don't mind, Siddharth, to my friends as well. But when a difficult decision faces you, there's always a Tata way of doing things, Krishna. It looks like Ratan Tata kind of ensured that, even when the water was hot.
Look, it's like this. It's one must understand that eventually they had a set of businesses, some which very highly regulated, some consumer facing. So if you look at what they did with telecom, for example, the outstanding to the government, 50,000 crores repaid in spite of the fact they didn't make too much of money in the sector. You look at what they did, Tata Finance, investor interest was most important. That contrasted against the fact you had a Tata equity to take care of was absolutely uncompromisable, if I may say so. So I think the group has just endeared itself into the hearts of billions of Indians, and just okay, it's like this. I would put it this way. I said aggression, but not at the cost of sacrificing equity of the business. If there's a business opportunity, they will go for it. They will reorient existing businesses, but the brand equity of the brand name is something on which there'll be absolutely no compromise. I think, to my mind, that stands out as the single most remarkable achievement.
And it's incredible how that has been handed down legacy-wise. Karishma, you're a young business journalist, and your first answer made it clear that no matter which generation we're talking about, even with Gen Z, these qualities of Ratan Tata were well known. As someone who kind of stood out from the crowd in terms of always doing the right thing, even when it was a difficult decision to make. Across sectors, across businesses, across controversies even. This was something that he managed to be his calling card, that there was a clean way of doing things, and Ratan Tata would always ensure it, Karishma.
Yes, in fact, I did come across a few quotes before I was joining this, and one of them was to the question of integrity that you and Siddharth both addressed, where I think Mr. Tata, in one of his speeches that at a youth conclave, had shared that do the right thing, even if the right thing is the most difficult thing to do. And I think that has hit very close this quote hits very close to all of us, because this is something that does not just belong to one particular generation, but growing up as youngsters, we do try and refer by all successful people, and we try to live by these quotes and try to use them in our daily life. In fact, he'd also said this one thing, that if there is somebody who's telling you that this can't be done, is exactly the point that you have to remove those myths and try to get things done. Shiv, I wasn't there as a reporter covering, as a journalist. I was probably young in school or college when Mr. Tata had taken over the throne and leading the way out. Yeah. But I did cover the disinvestment of Air India as a budding reporter. And back then, I remember in the press conference where government was questioned that this is going back to the Tatas, but it is going back at a price which may actually not sustain the airline. And knowing the fact that the airline was already not doing well and in a great shape, if you see today, all eyes you see is on Maharaja, and it is actually leading the way. So it's a live example, especially for somebody like me who's been born in 90s. I've seen the airline go from A to B, from B to A, and now we're all pegging on it being the identity of Indian aviation sector.
Very, very interesting, and I love this perspective, because it really sort of establishes the kind of appeal that Ratan Tata really radiated through much of his career. So I don't think there can be any argument as to his legacy. want to quickly read out, a very special message that has come in from Mukesh Ambani, Chairman, Managing Director of Reliance Industries Limited. He's just put out a statement, and I just wanted to read it out for our viewers. Mukesh Ambani says, "It is a very sad day for India and India Inc. Ratan Tata's passing away is a big loss, not just for the Tata Group, but to every Indian. At a personal level, the passing of Ratan Tata has filled me with immense grief as I lost a dear friend. Each of my numerous interactions with him left me inspired and energized and enhanced my respect for the nobility of his character and the fine human values he embodied. Ratan Tata was a visionary industrialist and a philanthropist who always strove for society's greater good. With the demise of Mr. Ratan Tata, India has lost one of her most illustrious and kind-hearted sons. Mr. Tata took India to the world and brought the best of the world to Bharat. He institutionalized the House of Tata and made it an international enterprise, growing the Tata Group over 70 times since he took over as chairman in 1991. On behalf of Reliance, Nita, and the Ambani family, I send my heartfelt condolences to the bereaved members of the Tata family and the entire Tata Group. Ratan, you will always remain in my heart. Om Shanti." A very, very heartfelt message from Mukesh Ambani to his fellow industrialist, someone who was in many ways a competitor, but a dear, dear friend, as he's described him, and someone who will be mourned not just by family members, not just by people in the Tata Group, but in some ways by every Indian. There's a sense of association, there's a sense of familiarity that most Indians perhaps feel with Ratan Tata, and therefore, for millions across the country, there will be a sense of sadness and a sense of loss.
Only channel in 3 warring nations. Gaurav Sawant live in Israel.
We are running away to safety.
Ashraf Wani live in Lebanon.
This is the spot where that bomb has actually hit.
Ashutosh Mishra live from Lebanon.
This is how the life have become for the people of Lebanon.
War reporters on the front. World exclusive combat reportage. Israel, Hezbollah, Iran. All out war. 360-degree coverage.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
There's some big breaking news coming in. Ratan Tata has passed away. The announcement from Tata Group says it is with a profound sense of loss that we bid farewell to Mr. Ratan Naval Tata, a truly uncommon leader whose immeasurable contributions have shaped not only the Tata Group, but also the very fabric of our nation. For the Tata Group, Mr. Tata was more than a chairperson. To me, he was a mentor, guide and friend. He inspired by example. With an unwavering commitment to excellence, integrity and innovation, the Tata Group under his stewardship expanded its global footprint while always remaining true to its moral compass. Mr. Tata's dedication to philanthropy and the development of society has touched the lives of millions. From education to healthcare, his initiatives have left a deep-rooted mark that will benefit generations to come, reinforcing all. Devesh Singh is joining us on the phone line for more on this. Devesh, big breaking news. Ratan Tata has passed away at the age of 86.
Padma Vibhushan, Mr. Ratan Tata, he was hospitalized on Monday, and since then his health condition deteriorated. He was undergoing treatment at the Breach Candy Hospital in Mumbai, where a team of doctors were tending to him, but his condition deteriorated, and this evening he passed away. Just a while ago, the Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekaran issued a media statement confirming about passing away of Mr. Ratan Tata. Though the hospital is yet to issue a bulletin on what were the issues of what was his condition, what was he ailing from, but the Tata Group has confirmed about passing of Mr. Ratan Tata. Industrialist Ratan Tata, who's been at the helm of affairs of the Tata Group for a very long time. He took Tata Group.
Right. I'll come back to you for more on this. We have Rajdeep Sardesai joining us on the phone line for more on this. Rajdeep, Ratan Tata was a prolific investor and a philanthropist, and now he's passed away at the age of 86. He made Tata a global powerhouse, but he also made massive donations to several charities.
Oh, absolutely. I think Ratan Tata will be remembered not just as an industrialist, but as a philanthropist. And he carried forward, therefore, that great Tata legacy of J.R.D. Tata and took it into the 21st century. He professionalized the top management of Tatas, but did it in the true Tata style, without ever abandoning the philanthropic roots of the Tata Group that goes back, of course, to the great Jamshedji Tata. So I think Ratan Tata's contribution should not just be seen in terms of what he did in expanding the Tata network, not just in India, but globally, but also in the fact that he retained the compassion that the Tata brand name was known for. And I think the best memory of that is the manner in which Ratan Tata handled the post-26/11 attack, which struck the Taj Hotels, part of the Tata Group. The manner in which the Tatas compassionately responded to all the concerns of the employees is a standout memory. And I think, therefore, Ratan Tata must be remembered for the fact that he showed that it is possible to be a capitalist, but a compassionate capitalist at that.
Absolutely. He also represents resilience, given the fact that he started out as an assistant in the Tata Group in the 1970s. And in just the span of a few decades, he became the chairman of Tata Sons.
Yes, of course. I mean, he had the famous Tata surname with him, which was a huge advantage. But he came into the helm of the Tatas at a time when the group was at the crossroads. Would it remain just a fading family company, or would it professionalize itself and adjust to the new world? And I think he was able to chart a path where you've got the likes of Dr. Chandrasekaran and others who've really taken Tatas to new heights, companies like TCS, which have expanded and built their own brand names. So I think he was able to ensure continuity with change. And I think that was a singular contribution to the Tata Group, that he was able to helm it through a very difficult time and thereby also chart out its future. But again, there will be those who will rather remember him for his life. I know someone who just told me about his great love for animals, someone who told me that he was always there for various NGOs and ventures that young people and startups wanted to begin, where they wanted support. The Tata Group was always available, and Ratan Tata himself would often personally get involved in mentoring a lot of young people who he felt would contribute meaningfully to society. So I think he was a man of many parts. I distinctly remember that he went to the same school that I did, obviously many, many years before, but we once invited him to an old boys' dinner. He came and delivered a wonderful speech about just how important it was to give back to society. And I think that was the Tata credo that Ratan Tata carried forward with great style and elan.
What are your memories of him? You must have interacted with him in your career. What do you think is Ratan Tata's true legacy?
I once did an interview for a program of Ratan Tata with Kapil Dev. It was a program where we were putting a sports icon with a corporate icon. And I must say that Ratan Tata put all of us so much at ease. There was Kapil Dev, dare I say in his Haryanvi English, Ratan Tata in his perfect anglicized manner, a good Parsi humor. And the two of them struck a rapport. And it then struck me just why Ratan Tata was so successful is because I think he wore his success very lightly. He wasn't, going to sort of, he didn't try and sort of impose himself on you. He was very gentle and calm when he met you and thereby made you extremely comfortable in his presence. So that's the one thing that I do remember, that whenever you met Ratan Tata, you always felt comfortable in his presence. He never tried to impose himself on you or tried to or carried the airs of a VVIP. And it was that understated style and a very elegant understated style that really stood out for me when you think about Ratan Tata.
Absolutely. One of the main highlights was, his Youth Connect, the fact that he promoted innovation and delegated responsibilities to younger talent.
Yes, he did. And I think that's really where the Tata Group has scored over a lot of their contemporaries, some of whom have faded away. When you think of some of the great brand names of India that were created post-independence, Tata is associated with India's independence and its rise today into a potential global power. And the reason for that is I think Ratan Tata understood that it wasn't just enough to make this a tightly knit family firm which worked basically on who knew whom, but to genuinely reward meritocracy. So he moved the company away from any form of nepotism and the old style of the Tata functioning into a new world, much more professional, much younger, and thereby lots of the young companies of Tata's, whether it's Tata Motors, TCS, all of them had a younger leadership, and that leadership was nurtured under the overarching leadership of Ratan Tata. So the Tata Group owes a lot to Ratan Tata. The country thereby owes a lot to Ratan Tata, because wherever you look, there's Tata. And, it's an iconic brand name because it was led by iconic leaders like Ratan Tata.
Ratan Tata is no more. It's the end of an era, which may be a cliche, but it is more true about Ratan Tata perhaps than any other industrial legend in the country. He's a man who defined being reclusive. He was famously media shy, gave very, very few interviews, and is a person who, filling the very big shoes of his great-grandfather, J.R.D. Tata, stepped into the shop floor of the Tata Group way back in 1961. His family insisted that he start on the shop floor, that he does not get any big VIP privileges, and that he work his way up of India's most respected industrial group, going on to spend half a century at the Tata Group and growing it into one of not only India's, but one of the world's most respected, diversified conglomerates ever. Ratan Tata has been critically ill for a while now. There had been talk about how seriously ill he was, and it was only a few minutes ago that the Tata Group made it official with N. Chandrasekharan announcing with profound grief the death of Ratan Tata. Rajdeep Sardesai continues to be with us. Rajdeep, through all his years in journalism, has tracked the journey of Ratan Tata as well. Rajdeep, Ratan Tata was famously reclusive, media shy. You could probably count the number of interviews he gave, on the fingers of two hands through an entire life. He preferred to be out of the spotlight. Tell us a little bit about that. He preferred to create value. He was famously philanthropic, animal lover, obviously loved reading, but shunned the spotlight virtually his entire life. Okay, we've got Krishna Gopalan. Let me go across to Krishna Gopalan, executive editor with Business Today. Krishna, if you heard my question, your first thoughts on Ratan Tata's passing. I think this had been expected for the last few days. Even though Ratan Tata himself on his social media had said that he was in for a routine checkup, I think the community, the industry knew that the end perhaps was coming, and that sad day is finally here, Krishna.
Yes, absolutely. To my mind, I think the fact that when he took over the group, it was a 10,000 crore conglomerate. And when he hung up his boots in 2012, it was almost 500,000 crores. I think the single greatest achievement of Ratan Tata, to my own mind, is just the way he took the Tata Group global, either through mergers and acquisitions, or just the fact that he decided to expand existing businesses like information technology. You just have to go back in time and look at what I would call the far-reaching buyouts like Tetley, later Chorus, JLR, just to understand the magnitude of his vision. TCS was still a relatively smaller company when he took charge. He decided to take the bull by its horns quite literally, and today it's among the world's largest IT companies. You look at a company like Tata Motors, known primarily for commercial vehicles, trucks, to be a little simplistic with my language. He led the foray into passenger vehicles. In fact, that's the product category that the company is now known by. So the whole ability to capitalize on a free India or India post 1991 is something we must give a lot of credit to Ratan Tata for.
Huge amount of credit should go to Ratan Tata. The question, I wanted to get into this a little later, Krishna, but I think I will ask it anyway because there's a great deal of interest and curiosity as well. Because Ratan Tata, even though he was an iconic individual, he was, after all, the man who lorded over this enormous diversified group that he created. So I quickly wanted to ask you, is there a succession plan in place for the Tata Group? Can you take us through that?
Well, I think starting 2012, when he turned 75, the plan was pretty much laid out. You will recall Cyrus Mistry took charge initially, followed by N. Chandrasekharan for a tenure of 5 years, and Chandra's tenure has now been renewed. So I think the succession plan has been marked by a sense of professionalism and the fact that it had to move into newer sectors. So I think that's pretty much in place. I don't see an apprehension in that one. He continued to be a mentor to the top executives, including Chandrasekharan, for many years. But that said, the professionalism of the group has been epitomized by the fact that a succession plan has been laid out many years ago, and a lot of credit must go to Mr. Tata for that.
What would you say, Krishna, are the big highlights? You named some of those just now. Ratan Tata had a half a century. It's amazing that he began on the shop floor famously, because those who brought the family introduction into the business did not push him straight into the executive suite. He had to start rough. He had to, make his bones, prove himself on the shop floor, and he famously had to work his way up. So it was a half-century journey where, much has been written about how no favors were done to him. Of course, he bore the Tata name, but he had to make his bones and climb the ladder like everyone else.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm just going to name two companies. One was Nelco and the other was Empress Mills. And these are companies where they cut his teeth in the 70s and 80s. So the architect who graduated from Cornell in the 60s came to a very different India. You're speaking of India with the license Raj and the fact that he had to cut his teeth. So for him to come to that kind of a background, understand business, understand what it meant to be running difficult businesses, and then getting into running a company in a liberals economy. You must understand, he was only 55 when he took charge of the Tata Group, and there were a lot of difficult businesses. Most people may not know this. They had businesses as varied as publishing, FMCG, cement. He sat with a bunch of consultants from across the world, took the tough decision to exit some of the businesses. I mean, just to draw a bit of an explanation here, the FMCG business got acquired by Hindustan Unilever, what was then called Tomco, Tata Oil Mills Company. So I think to that extent, taking the tough decisions, moving into new areas, and still succeeding in a new economy, because at the end of the day, of post 1991 India meant a new set of regulations, and you're up against a competitive world. To come Trump's, I think in that kind of a scenario is quite remarkable.
What is he going to be remembered most for, Krishna? Those who tracked him closely, would have found it both a rewarding and a kind of difficult job, because he's a man, like I said, who didn't enjoy the media spotlight very much. It was a highly structured and disciplined group, that had the kind of industrial ethic and work ethic that actually made the Tata Group famous. For the way it actually conducted itself and its business. What was it like covering the Tatas and Ratan Tata in particular?
Well, remarkable is the only way to put it. You're speaking of a conglomerate with multi-businesses. You're speaking of telecommunications, financial services, steel, automobiles, and these are names that come to mind instantaneously. Information technology, the whole thing of buyouts, watching companies like TCS go public, Tata Tech, of course, more recently, watching them exiting businesses. So I think for the lack of a better expression, nothing short of being a roller coaster. You knew, all of us, on a lighter vein, I must say that we had a big ticket Tata story. A journalist career was made. It was as simple as that. So to that extent, we've been fortunate enough to track the growth of many a business in the Tata Group. They went through many difficult phases as well with the businesses, but that pretty much happens with any large conglomerate. But to come out trumps, to my mind, I think is the most remarkable achievement of Mr. Tata.
Krishna, I'm going to let you go for the moment. Thanks very much for those valuable insights into Ratan Tata. Krishna Gopalan, Executive Editor of Business Today. Business Today, remember, has tracked the entire life and career of Ratan Tata, including the most iconic phase of expansion where he converted a company into an empire, a conglomerate. Ratan Tata was an individual recognized and familiar worldwide, respected by people across country lines, across nationalities, someone who truly made the India Inc. story an international one. Rahul Gandhi, Mamata Banerjee, the Prime Minister, they've all paid their respects, and you will see all of those messages right here on India Today as they continue to come in. This is a tragic news that we're reporting to you live here on India Today late tonight. Now, as you just heard Krishna Gopalan of Business Today tell us, there is a succession plan in place, but it will be apparent very, very soon. There had been some conjecture about the fact that Ratan Tata is has been a lifelong bachelor. He's single. He has no children. He never married, even though he famously said he came very close to getting married at least 4 times in his life. Without children, what is the succession plan going to be in the Tata Group? But if anyone has tracked the Tata Group, you know that there have been many occasions in which successions have not gone from father to children. So the Tata Group definitely has a structure and a succession plan in place. The reason why I mention this is because as a visionary billionaire, as a visionary value creator, Ratan Tata created a conglomerate of companies that employs millions of people, has millions of shareholders everywhere, and therefore his death affects people way beyond just the Tata Group. And therefore, as a scripter of India's story, as a man who is an indispensable part of the India growth story, we have to tell you about those he affected. We pay tribute to Ratan Naval Tata. He was 86 years old and he is no more.
The year was 1962 when a young man of 25 entered the offices of the National Radio and Electronics Company Limited at Andheri in Mumbai. 9 years later, he was the director in charge of the company, and a decade later, the chairman of Tata Industries. In 1991, he succeeded J.R.D. Tata as the chairman of the Tata Group. The youth was Ratan Tata, fresh out of Cornell University, armed with a bachelor's degree in architecture, more than ready to enter and learn as he would rise from the lowest rungs in one of India's most hallowed industrial houses. Today, Tata's contribution to India's largest conglomerate and to the nation's economy was second to none. He was on a pedestal very few industrialists in the country were able to climb. Though he had the magic surname, young Ratan had a tough act to follow, that of his predecessors, Jamsetji Tata, Dorab Tata, and finally the iconic J.R.D. Ratan Tata took on the challenge, and by the time he retired in December 2012, the Tata Group's financials spoke loud about the impact he had. During his tenure, the group's revenues grew manifold, totaling over $100 billion in 2011-2012.
Been recognized all over the world as an enterprising country.
Ratan Tata identified the opportunity which the liberalization of the Indian economy provided and began restructuring the Tata Group in 1991. Under his leadership, the group acquired high-profile international brands like Tetley Tea, Daewoo, Chorus Steel and Jaguar Land Rover. He was also the man behind Tata Nano, the company's small car project, which he hoped would give wheels to the middle class. The journey, however, was not easy and tested his mettle at every turn. First, he had to deal with the satraps, a legacy left by his uncle J.R.D. Tata. Rusi Modi lorded over Tata Steel. Darbari Seth was the final voice at Tata Tea and Tata Chemicals. Ajit Kerkar was the force behind Indian Hotels. And Nani Palkhiwala was the man behind ACC. Each considered these companies their fiefdoms and looked at Ratan Tata as another outsider they had to deal with. 6 years after taking over as the Tata Group chairman, all four of them had resigned. Ratan also wielded the broom on several companies. He exited cement, textiles and cosmetics and focused his energies on software, telecom, finance and retail. Finally, after serving as group chairman for 21 years, Ratan Tata retired in December 2012. He had spent 50 illustrious years with the Tata Group. An avid aviator, Tata was awarded the Padma Vibhushan, the country's second highest civilian honour, by the Government of India in 2008.